Morning, everyone. This is Russell Rucker, and I'm here for another constitutional talk. And today I thought we'd talk a little bit really about the vision of Madison. You know, when we talk about Madison, generally we're talking about the Constitution, because generally speaking, he brought the outline that eventually became our Constitution. So he really had a great say in how the Constitution developed. He even had a list of the members at the convention, and he was kind of sorting it out to see who would be for an all-new Constitution and who just wanted to amend the Articles of Confederation, which was the original intent. But after the Constitutional Convention, and after the ratifying convention, Madison ran for a seat in Congress. And one of his promises was he would take all the complaints from the ratifying conventions and he put it in the constitutions through the amendment process. And what I've done is something interesting, because a lot of times you can find it, even online, the changes and the changes he had intended. And it tells you where to insert it. But what I've done is I've typed up the entire Constitution and I've put in the changes so that it would be a little more different. And I know in an earlier show we did discuss these changes. But I want to show it to you in a way that you'll understand how he intended it to be. And so here I'm going to read certain sections of it so you get the full context of how he wanted the Constitution to be with the amendment changes. Now, keep in mind the amendments were not Amendment 1, 2, 3, and 4. They were interwoven into the Constitution that we have today, even with the new preamble. So let me start here. The Constitution of the United States. That all power is originally invested in and consequently derived from the people. That government instituted and ought to be exercised for the benefit of the people, which consist in the enjoyment of life and liberty, with the rights of acquiring and using property, and generally of pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety, that the people have an indubitable, unalienable, and indefeasible right to reform or change their government whenever it found adverse or inadequate to the purposes of its institution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. You see where I'm getting at here? He's inserted this 3-paragraph section. And when you go through the Constitution as he intended it with his amendments, and the first 10 amendments of our Constitution and the 27th Amendment are here interwoven, along with another one that never passed. So I'm going to skip forward a ways into Section 2, Article 1, Section 2. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states, which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole numbers of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States, within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such manner as they shall by law direct. After the first actual enumeration, Madison writes, There shall be one representative for every 30,000, until that number amount to after which the proportion shall be so regulated by Congress, that the number shall never be less than no more than that of each state shall after the first enumeration have at least 2 representatives, and prior thereto, the state of New Hampshire shall be entitled to choose 3. Massachusetts 8. Rhode Island and Providence Plantation 1. Connecticut 5. New York 6. New Jersey 4. Pennsylvania 8. Delaware 1. Maryland 6. Virginia 10. North Carolina 5. South Carolina 5. And Virginia 3. Now, what they're talking about after the actual enumeration, there shall be one representative for every 30,000 until that number amount to after which the proportion shall be so regulated by Congress. So what they're doing is they're increasing the number even after you have a recounting of the population. You're increasing the number by birth because it gives it for every 30,000. Now, this is an important amendment that never passed, but it could. It's still out there because there was never a sunset clause put on that amendment. Now, I'm going to move on to Section 6, Article 1, Section 6. The senators and representatives shall receive a compensation for their services, to be ascertained by law and paid out of the Treasury of the United States, but no law varying the compensation last ascertained shall operate before the next ensuing election of representatives. Now, this line, by no law varying the compensation, in what I just read, is basically our 27th Amendment, which was passed in 1992. But it does go on into our text we now have. They shall in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of peace be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses, and in going to and returning from the same, and for any speech or debate either in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. So we finally did get that passed in the 27th. Now I'm going to move on quite a little ways here into the section that we just talked about on habeas corpus, and I'll start there. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. No bill or attainder of ex post facto law, public safety may require it. No bill or attainder of ex post facto law shall be passed. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless to the proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. And here Madison begins with his change. The civil rights of none shall be abridged on account of religious belief or worship, nor shall any national religion be established, nor shall the full and equal rights of conscience be in any manner or on any pretext infringed. Now, if you know the Constitution well enough, you understand the intense change here. But he goes on, and this is a lengthy section that we're discussing here. The people shall not be deprived or abridged of their right to speak, to write, or to publish their sentiments, and the freedom of the press as one of the great bulwarks of liberty shall be inviolable. The people shall not be restrained from peaceably assembling and consulting for their common good, nor from applying to the legislature by petitions or remonstrances to redress of their grievances. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A well-armed and well-regulated militia being the best security of a free country, but no person religiously scrupulous of bearing arms shall be compelled to render military service in person. And that is going through that section, basically our First and Second Amendments today. But it goes on into what is our third. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor at any time, but in a manner warranted by law. No person shall be subject, except in cases of impeachment, to more than one punishment, or one trial for the same offense, nor shall be compelled to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor be obliged to relinquish his property where it may be necessary for public use without compensation. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. The rights of the people to be secure in their persons, their houses, their papers, and their property from all unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated by warrants issued without probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, or not particularly describing the places to be searched or the persons to be seized. Obviously, this is all throughout our Fourth to Eighth Amendments and the rights of the accused. I, all criminal prosecutions. The accused shall enjoy the right of a speedy and public trial, to be informed of the cause and nature of the accusation to be confronted, with his accusers and the witnesses against him, to have a compulsory process for obtaining witness in his favor, and to have assistance of counsel in his defense. The exceptions here or elsewhere in the Constitution made in favor of particular rights. And this is getting to the Ninth Amendment now. The exceptions here or elsewhere in the Constitution made in the favor of particular rights shall not be construed as to diminish the just importance of other rights retained by the people, or as to enlarge the powers delegated by the Constitution by either as actual limitations of such power or as inserted merely for greater caution. This really gets into natural rights and jurisdictional rights of the Constitution. But that's quite a long section, and it takes in a bulk of what our Bill of Rights is today. Now, as we move on into Section 10, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold or silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grants any title or nobility. And here's where Madison begins again. No state shall violate the equal rights of conscience, or the freedom of press, or the trial by jury in criminal cases. So as you see, he's interwoven this, and it shows a different idea in certain things. So no state shall violate the equal right of conscience. Think about that for a moment. Conscience. What we truly believe and what we're thinking about. So that is, in his mind, is as important as the freedom of press or the trial by jury. So I think that's important to understand. Then we get all the way into Article 3 and into Section 2. Under the grants of different states and between a state or citizens thereof and of foreign states, citizens or subjects, and here we begin the change. But no appeal to such court shall be allowed where the value in controversy shall not amount to, and he leaves the amount blank. of dollars, nor shall any fact triable by jury, according to the course of common law, be otherwise re-examinable than they consist with the principles of common law. Now here we're really getting into discussing common law, something that our Constitution, although it is implied throughout, doesn't really explicitly say. But here we get into the importance of how they feel common law is. Then we go through another paragraph that's here, and he begins again. The trial of all crimes except in cases of impeachments and in cases arising in the land or naval forces of the militia, when on actual service in time of war or public danger, shall be an impartial jury of freeholders of the vicinage with the request of unanimity for conviction, of the right of challenge, and other accustomed requisites, in all crimes punishable with loss of life or member, presentment or indictment by grand jury shall be an essential preliminary, provided that in all cases of crime committed with any country which may be in possession of an enemy, or in which the general insurrection may prevail, the trial may be authorized in some other county of the same state as near as may be in the seat of the offense. So he gives them a chance to move a trial in case it is necessary to remove a prejudicial thought. And that's really what's discussed here. But it also mentions in loss of life or member. In other words, maybe cutting somebody's hand off, somebody's finger off. Some kind of thing like this. So it's life or member. It goes on here. In cases of crimes committed not within any county, the trial may by law be in such county as the laws may have prescribed in suits at common law between man and man. The trial by jury is one of the best securities to the rights of the people, ought to remain inviolable. So he's making this argument about trial by jury and how important he feels that is. Then we get to the last couple sections of the Constitution. He has created an Article 7 that states, the powers delegated by this Constitution are appropriated to the departments to which they are respectively distributed, so that the legislative departments shall never exercise the powers vested in the executive or judicial, nor the executive exercise the powers vested in the legislative or judicial, nor the judicial exercise the powers vested in the legislature or executive power. The powers not delegated by this Constitution, nor prohibited to it by the states, are reserved to the states respectively. This, my friends, is what has become our 10th Amendment. Then he renumbers and creates an Article 8, but he doesn't change the language. And this has to do with how the Constitution is to be ratified. The ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states, so ratifying the same. Now, as we read through these changes, inserted in the places where he thought, it gives you a real good idea of what Madison's vision really was. But not just Madison, because remember, these complaints came out of the ratifying conventions. And that's something that's important to note here. So when you get to the ratifying conventions and the Anti-Federalists didn't want to approve it without a Bill of Rights, he has actually gone through and he's basically rewritten the Constitution to insert a Bill of Rights within. This is a very interesting concept in my mind anyway, and it gives you a better idea of what Madison was really thinking, what he wanted to give to us. And remember, it was Madison's plan, the Virginian plan, that was presented in the Constitutional Convention that became the bulk work of our frame of government. So it's an important thing to think about, and it gives you a little better, another layer of understanding of what our Constitution really means, what the intents are. Because as you see the rewording, it gives you a better intention of what they were trying to accomplish. Now, this was brought up in our first Congress. And it was taken out, rewritten, and sent on to the Senate. And the Senate reformed some, and eventually it was sent to the states, and it was renumbered Article 1, 2, and 3, and so forth. And that's how we've defined our Constitution since, with the main section and then the amendments. So I just want you to think of that and think about how what Madison really was thinking about. And in some of these cases, it gives you a better concept of what those amendments really mean. I hope you consider that, think about that a little bit, and we'll catch you next time on the next Constitutional Talk. Please subscribe to my videos, follow me, and until next time, good day, and we'll catch you next week on the next Constitutional Talk. Goodbye for now.